Your business idea was an idea, and running a company of any size, you are hit with ideas every single moment on what to do, how to do them, and co. And a lot of times this can be overwhelming. And that's what today's guest on the Tech Your Business podcast, where we show you how to use technology to stay ahead of the competition, is doing. He's trying to make ranking your ideas, making decisions much easier with IdeaScale. And his name is Nick Jain. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Peter. I'm very excited to be here today.
Amazing. So can you just we're talking a bit just now, so but you can tell the listeners what's IdeaScale about? What impact does it have on companies?
Sure. So, we are the largest innovation software company on the planet. We've been around 15 years. We work with large organizations like Pfizer and Comcast, the US Post Office, Transportation Safety Authority, all over the world. Um, and what our software does is it helps these large organizations innovate better so they can be smarter and get better tomorrow as an organization. Our software does this by helping them collect all of the ideas around their organization. This could be from their junior employees, from their senior employees, from their customers, from their shareholders. Collect all of those ideas in one place, upvote and downvote the ideas so that the best ideas rise to the top. Conceptually, it's very similar to like TikTok, right? TikTok is a social media platform where you're sharing funny dance videos. Our platform is a way for people to share ideas and for the best, most viral ideas to rise to the top where they can then be seen by the executive team and turned into reality.
That's an interesting idea. I
Thank
just
you.
idea.
Yeah, we run into that trouble all the time. What do we use in terms of the word idea when it's in our actual company name?
Okay, so now how do you get to this point of helping organizations get their best ideas seen?
Sure. So, as I said, we've been doing this for 15 years, so we've gotten pretty good at what we do. Um, what really powers our solution is software, right? Just in the same way that you have software for almost any other aspect of your life as an organization, you need software for ideas. So, a couple of examples are if you were working sales and marketing, you have a CRM software like HubSpot or Salesforce to be the brains of your sales force. If you work in finance, you have an ERP like a QuickBooks or NetSuite. Um, if you're an innovation professional, or if you're deciding how to make the company better tomorrow, often this is just done with paper or pencil or Excel, and that's not a proper tool, right? So our founders came up with this idea when they realized that a whole bunch of organizations were struggling on how to innovate, and they were doing it kind of haphazardly without the right tools in place or without any tools in place. And so they built this software system, and that was again a long time ago now, and we've been off to the races and expanding ever since.
Amazing. So now you've worked with a lot of big companies and cool. What's the biggest misconception you've seen them have when it comes to the topic of innovation on ideas?
Sure. So I think there's two big misconceptions I encounter very frequently. The first is that innovation happens in isolation as a spark of genius. People think of innovation as somebody in a room by themselves, they wake up and they have a great idea. That's not how good innovation happens. Innovation is a process. There's a right way to do it and a way to achieve it day in and day out rather than rely on the lone genius or the random idea that happens. That's number one. And number two, innovation is not an event, but innovation is not an object, but a process to make things better. So, people think of the iPhone or a plane as an innovation. No, those were the outcomes of innovation.
Okay. So now for bigger companies, we know that corporations are usually known to be slower in making decisions and things like that. So apart from that, what other unique innovation challenges do these larger corporations face?
Sure. So that's a great question. That's literally why we exist, right? Small organizations don't tend to be our customers because they're already good at innovating. But large organizations, they're slower moving, they're more complex, they're more bureaucratic. There's all sorts of weird incentives throughout an organization that prevent it from innovating. And what they've historically done is they one of three things kind of happen when large organizations struggle to innovate. Number one is they get outcompeted and they either go out of business or get shut down by their kind of government sponsors. Um, Number two is they just go out and buy innovation through mergers and acquisition. That tends to be really expensive. That's why big companies, they're like, we can't invent something new, so we're just going to go buy somebody else who invented something. And turns out, if you actually read the academic research on this, M&A almost always destroys value because you're paying for somebody else's great idea. They're going to charge you a lot of money. Um, and then third is they just kind of repeat it. They muddle through. They invest a lot of resource. They do innovate, but in a very expensive, non-repeatable way, which is not good as a large organization, right? So the specific problems they end up encountering are number one, weird incentives. People don't actually have innovation or the incentives to innovate in large organization. That's why key employees go found startups or go to smaller companies because they do want to be creative. Number two is they don't actually know what innovation is, right? Innovation is a great buzzword. It's one of those buzzwords that everyone likes saying. Every company or organization likes to say we're innovative, we're thinking about the future. But what does that actually mean in practice? How do you measure it? Sorry, how do you define it? And then the third problem is how do you measure it, right? Even after you've defined it, even after you've created incentives for everyone around your organization to innovate, how do you measure it? Because that's really important. And whenever you're doing anything at scale, whether you're going to the gym and trying to get in better shape, whether you're running $1 billion company, whether you are a government agency trying to help people, you need to measure your results. And a lot of organizations struggle to measure their innovation efforts.
Okay. So now, for do you have an example of maybe a company or an organization that's used your software that had really great results, so our listeners can really visualize how it can impact their businesses?
Sure, I'll give two examples. One is actually us using our own software, and one is a client. So I'll give a fun one to start with is us using our own software. So we realized about 6 months ago we didn't have a company mascot, and we wanted to come up with a
Oh,
company mascot. So we asked everyone around the world. This could be our employees, this could be customers, this could be random students who have no affiliation with IdeaScale. Hey, what should our company mascot be? People submitted dozens of ideas. People voted ideas up and down. I submitted three ideas. In fact, two of my ideas people hated and they ended up near the bottom. One of my ideas made it into the final three, which, by the way, is how it should go. People should feel comfortable voting down the CEO's idea, right?
yeah.
Um, so we ended up we ran this campaign for about several months. Eventually, actually, a South African employee's idea got voted the top. Um, and so this was an employee who just joined us 6 months ago, is on the other side of the world by himself. He's our only employee in Africa right now, right? And yet his idea was voted the best company wide by all of our employees, by all of our users, the public. And so that's how we came up with Sparky the Idea Pup. I need to get an
Hmm.
image of him, but it's a very cute little dog wearing a superhero cape and carrying a light bulb. Um,
Well,
so that's a fun example of how our software allowed us to find the best idea for what should be our company mascot. On a more serious note, one of our clients is one of the largest cryptocurrency think tanks. It's founded by one of the co-founders of Ethereum. So these are people dealing with very serious technical and engineering problems, right? They're they're uh, they're developing the cutting edge research that drives cryptocurrency technology. And they run into all these technical problems for anyone familiar with cryptocurrencies. How do you make it more fast? How do you make it more secure? How do you prevent it from being attacked in various ways? How do you actually increase the throughput of data? These are very difficult technical problems that require incredible amounts of brain and IQ to solve. And so this it's called IOHK or Project Cardano. It's a public community. You can go join it. And they ask scientists and engineers and computer programs around the world, hey, how do we solve this problem to make the cryptocurrency community better? And this is not just for Ethereum, not just for Bitcoin, not just for Dogecoin, but how do we solve these technical problems that apply to all these cryptocurrencies? And so if you Google Project Cardano or IOHK, which is the name of the think tank, you can see all the difficult problems they are solving every single month on how to make their on how to solve these technical problems. And again, those are really, really hard problems that require the brains of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people to solve.
amazing. So now, some people might have an objection using software like this. Some might say, okay, we already have suggestion boxes and things like that collect ideas from employees and people around. So how is this? What would you say to them?
Sure. So that's a common thing people ask. Hey, we already have a suggestion box. So let me ask kind of a rhetorical question. How does an employee on the other side of the world drop something into your question number one is how does an employee on the other side of the world drop an idea into your suggestion box or a junior employee? Number two, how often does anybody actually read the ideas in the suggestion box? And number three, even if you're reading them, how do you objectively figure out which are good ideas versus bad ideas versus just the feelings of the CEO or the person looking at the suggestion box, right?
Hmm.
That's suggestion boxes, they kind of suck, right? They work if you're in a 25-person company who all work in one factory or one location and someone cares enough to look at it, right? They don't work well when you are 10,000 people spread across 20 countries where you have a CEO that is 8 levels above the janitor who may have a great idea or the warehouse employee, right? Or may
Yeah.
speak a different language than the person sitting in Japan, or even in the United States we have many people who don't speak English well. How do they contribute ideas even be when our executives primarily speak English, um, or executives and national leaders primarily speak English here. Um, so software like ours, and again, I think we're best in class, but there's other software that, in general, tries to help you innovate. And what innovation software does is it kind of achieves three goals. Number one, it's scalable. So what you can do for software in general, like it works for whether you're 20 people, 200 people, or 200,000 people, and that's true of whether database software, Google, Gmail, whatever it is, right? Number one, software is scalable. Number two is we decrease the hierarchy, right? The suggestion box works at your physical location. It doesn't work. It doesn't decrease the number of layers between the CEO and the lower level employees or the CEO and the customers. And number three, it creates an objective ranking metric. Like, how do you determine which ideas are good? Our software allows you to do that both through voting, kind of getting a public crowdsourcing vote, but also through objective measures. You can quantify the benefits of ideas by saying, look, this idea is worth $10. This idea saves 5 more lives. This idea costs $1 billion because and
Hmm.
isn't impractical. Software in gen, and again, some of this is specific to our software, but some of what I'm saying is true to all software. This is why software is continuously growing around the world because it's so powerful versus traditional ways of doing things, right? If you want to use suggestion box, the analogy in accounting is why are people not doing accounting with paper anymore, right? They used to in the
Hmm.
1800s. Why are they not doing that today? Because accounting software is
Hmm.
better.
Exactly. Exactly. So, one other question I would like to ask: when you talked about getting the mascot for IdeaScale, that's the Idea Pop. You talked about the idea coming from the most unlikely, your only
I
South
wouldn't say
African
most unlikely,
employee.
but a new, yeah,
Yeah,
someone with unexpected.
it was unexpected. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
your
great
new
guy. Not he's
employee.
not the most unlikely.
Your newer employee from South Africa,
Yeah.
which would likely not have happened if you didn't use this, like you mentioned earlier. So, what's another surprising source of innovative ideas you've seen in large organizations that you know would encourage more to adopt this?
Sure. So I think that there's two things that happen that surprise organizations, but don't surprise us because we've been doing this a long time. Number one is you get great ideas from junior employees, right? People, one of the common misconceptions is the people in the boardroom or the CEO or his or her friends are the most intelligent people in an organization. Even first of all, that's not always true. But secondly, even if it were true, great ideas can come from people who are not necessarily the most intelligent or most powerful. So you get a lot of opinions from people who are just lower in the hierarchy or more degrees of separation from the decision makers in an organization, right? you get yeah, You'll get just junior employees or people in blue collar professions giving great ideas that impact the organization at a national or international level. That's number one. Number two is setting aside even hierarchy. You often get people from different departments who have great ideas that influence other departments. So, a really good example is we are a tech company. We have an engineering department, we have a finance department, we have a marketing department. Sometimes marketing has really good ideas for engineering because one of the marketers like codes in his or her private life, or conversely the engineers have a great idea for a marketing campaign that normally they would never get to talk. And this is not about vertical hierarchies in an organization, it's about lateral silos. And you
Mm,
need to be able to if your different departments aren't talking to each other, you're not running one big organization, you're running a whole bunch of small organizations, and silos are really bad for resulting in a collaborative atmosphere.
okay. So now for organizations, there are organizations where you have thousands of employees spread out across the globe. And let's say maybe they are using this software and they want to collect ideas. How does the software ensure that these ideas are not lost in the noise? Because thousands of people putting in.
Sure. So some ideas will be lost in the noise, to be honest, right? That's normal. If you have thousands of ideas, some good ideas will be lost. But the question is, but I think that's an unfair question. It's not that, hey, are we perfect? It is, are we better than any other process that exists, right?
Mm,
Again, using the accounting software analogy, acca- accounting software will eventually lose some amount of data, or some companies will use accounting software to commit fraud, but that doesn't mean accounting software is bad. What I'm confident about saying about our solution is it allows you to get more ideas and prioritize more good ideas than alternatives,
mm,
than the suggestion box, than the Google form, than having a person whose job it is to be the idea manager. Um,
yeah.
so good ideas do some ideas will get lost, but the good news is on average, many good ideas will float to the top, be recognized, and be implemented when you implement a good innovation software solution versus if you're just doing it with pen and paper.
Yeah. So one issue businesses have, especially with adopting new technology, is that a lot of the personnel, there's usually a lot of pushback. There's times where people don't want to engage with or participate with using this software. So how do you encourage organizations who pick up your software to encourage their team members to participate, engage with IdeaScale?
Sure. There's two things. Firstly, number one is we offer our software completely free for the first 100 users, right? So whether you're a one person organization or 100 person, you can go try it out and get started before you start paying a lot of money to get the or to get the enterprise
Hmm.
grade version of the software. So that encourages people to start getting a few users using it, right? It's a lot easier when you already have 50 users using your software to build, right? Imagine you joined Facebook and you were user number one. You don't have your friends on there, right? It's a lot easier when there's already hundreds or thousands of users that you can build a community and build friendships and relationships. So that's number one. We encourage people to start small and then scale up. Number two is we encourage people to make it open. I think one of the natural instincts that a lot of people have is they want to make the community, when they start using our software, they want to restrict it to just one department or one group of people or one office. And we really encourage them that no, that is not how social networks are built, right? Imagine if TikTok was just available to people in Singapore, or just available to people in China, or just available to people in the United States. Would you get as many great TikTok videos? And the answer is no. One of TikTok's great power is it is allowing you to explore content from around the world. So we really encourage people to make communities open and accessible, whether it be to their entire organization or to their entire customer base. And that's sometimes difficult because organizations, aren't people are very uncomfortable with being open in an organization, but turns out that speeds up your innovation process dramatically.
Okay, so now one thing I think would be on the minds of people listening is how does the voting system work? How does it make the best ideas come up at the top?
Sure. So there's two systems of voting. One is a social system voting, and one is a quantitative evaluation. On the social system of voting, it's very similar to kind of any social network, Facebook or TikTok. People upvote and downvote ideas, or Reddit. Reddit is a really good example. You can upvote or downvote things on Reddit or
Mhm.
Quora, right? Um, so just like that, you can upvote and downvote ideas. Now, that seems silly that, hey, you can just let a random person around your company upvote or downvote an idea, but it turns out that's really powerful. It draws on the power of what's called prediction markets or crowdsourcing. I don't know if your audience is familiar with this, but there's been a ton of research on these things called prediction markets. What happens if you just let random people vote on things? And turns out random people on average, 1,000 random people on average are smarter than one genius, right?
Hmm.
So having people vote ideas up and down is actually extraordinarily powerful in identifying good ideas. Okay. Even if they're not experts, even if they're junior employees, giving them a vote and an equal vote turns out to result in a pretty good solution on average. Okay. it's like that old joke. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others, right? Democracy is uncomfortable, but it turns out there, with all its weaknesses, letting people vote is actually really good
Yeah.
at getting the right decision because alternatives to democracy tend to be really bad, and that's true not only in political government but also in decision making. Um, the second is the quantitative form of voting, where each organization has different metrics that they care about, right? A private sector organization, like a pharmaceutical company, may care about new molecules they're trying out. A financial company may be caring about the ROI on their new financial product. A government agency may care about how many constituents they're helping. So our software allows you to customize the quantitative elements of what your goals are, how to rank ideas. So you can then, so people will say, hey, this idea costs $1,000, but it can help a million people, or it costs $1 million and it helps one person. And so you can obviously rank ideas based on whatever metrics matter to your organization. And that's the more quantitative or analytical side of evaluating ideas.
Nice. So now you mentioned ROI. So that brings me to the next question. For a business investing in software like yours, how would they be able to measure the return on investment in the software?
Sure. So I love ROI. I spend most of my career in Wall Street. We always measured it on, is this a good business decision? Is this good ROI? So I love it when my customers ask me this, and I have two answers for this. Okay. Actually, I have three answers for this. Number one is software is more efficient and more scalable than a person. Right. Right now, large organizations often have someone whose sole job is to be that suggestion box, and they're not as good at it as an actual piece of software. So imagine you're paying someone $100,000, 200,000, $500,000 a year to be get it, just collect ideas. They're basically an email inbox where they get people email them ideas, they write it down and on a Google form somewhere. So number one, software is just cheaper, faster, and more scalable than any human being. So there's cost savings right away, right? That you can use my software. You can either use my software or hire someone who is 10 times more expensive. That's number one. Um, Number two is, okay, what imagine that you said you're an organization that is not innovative. What is the cost of that to you, right? It's a lot more expensive than $100,000, $500,000 piece of enterprise grade software, which again, we're expensive, but we're better than, imagine you're $1 billion organization that doesn't innovate. What happens then? You become Intel, which recently just had to lay off large amounts of people, or Boeing, which is undergoing the same thing. If you're not innovative, over the long run, just remember your competitors are innovating. And so
Yeah.
there's a huge cost to you not innovating. Um, and then the third is quantitatively, right? Because we allow you to evaluate and quantify your ideas, you can say at the end of the year that, hey, IdeaScale helped us come up with these 10 ideas. They generated this much economic value for us. That could be $10 million of value, or a million or 100,000 people helped. What is the value of that? So let's put it in dollars and cents. If IdeaScale helped you generate $10 million of economic value that you would not have achieved without us, and you paid us $100,000, the ROI of that is 1,000%. It's very easy math. And I love it when my customers do that, because then it's very easy for them to come back to me next year and say, hey, Nick, we want your software again. We're willing to pay for it because you're worth 1,000% ROI.
That's a really brilliant answer. So, what's the most innovative use of idea scale you've seen among your clients?
Sure. I think the most innovative, or the most power, actually, maybe most innovative is the wrong word. I'd say the most powerful use is when organizations use software like IdeaScale to solicit feedback from their customers or constituents. So if
Hmm.
you're McDonald's, go ask your customers what your new menu idea should be, or how you can run a better marketing campaign, or how you can improve your services, right? What sauce you should bring back. That's you. Or like if you're a nonprofit, one of our one of our, not biggest, but one of our important customers is a huge nonprofit food bank. Okay, so they're
Hmm.
serving food to hundreds of thousands of people a year, right? That's really impactful for the community. They're going out and talking to their hundreds of thousands of people and say, how can we give you food, right? That's really impactful when you're actually
Wow.
talking to the people who you help, whether that be your customers, the nonprofit people you're serving, these constituents if you're a government agency. That's powerful, because then you're not just tapping your employees, but you're tapping, imagine you're an employee that, or organization that's got 10,000 employees. You're even though you've got 10,000 employees, you're affecting millions of people. Go talk to those millions of people. That's hugely powerful.
Hmm, amazing.
Right,
So
like
now,
one of our, one of the actually one fun example that's relevant to you. I think you're based in Nigeria. Is we're about, we're talking to a big Nigerian bank. Nigeria's got what, like 100 million people. Imagine if that big Nigerian bank goes and talks to the 100 million Nigerians who want better financial services. That's awesome. And Nigeria, by the way, is a great innovation. Is done tremendous amounts of work in like financial innovation over the last 15 years, and we would love to be part of that. And we're excited to soon will be part of that ecosystem.
yeah, I think there's also I talk about that. I use UK banks, I use Nigerian banks. I also tell people that the Nigerian banks are always far ahead in security and everything than these banks I have because it's something.
Well, when Nigeria's done a really like Nigeria 30 years ago didn't have a great financial or tech infrastructure, but because they were starting from zero, they didn't, or not from
Yes.
zero, but from a lower starting point, they didn't have to think about all the bad technology. Like many U.S. banks are still running on mainframes that were written from the 1970s that are written in a dead programming language called COBOL. Whereas a lot of in more emerging economies don't have to deal with like old 30-year-old technology systems. They can just build new tech. That's why, what was that that the first person to person financial exchange app, what was it called, like M-Pesa or something from
Oh yeah, yeah. South Africa
right,
also.
that
Yeah.
originated in like Nigeria, and there was a similar thing that happened, I think, in
Oh, Kenya, Kenya,
Southeast
Kenya. That's
Asia,
Kenya.
right? And the reason that these peer-to-peer applications existed or came to be in developing economies rather than developed economies was they didn't have to deal with the technical infrastructure of like a 30-year-old banking mainframe that can't deal with P2P or thousands of parallel transactions or concurrent transactions at the same time, millions in fact.
Yeah. So, what's been the most difficult part of building IdeaScale over the last 15 years?
Sure. So I didn't found IdeaScale. I've only been here for about 2 years. So I'll only speak to, I think I'll speak to kind of before me and kind of after me. Before me, starting a company from scratch, and we did it, and our founders did it entirely bootstrapped. They didn't take a single dollar venture capital.
Whoa.
So they built this company for the first 13 years without taking on any money, just building it from the ground up through effort and networking and building great software, often on a shoestring budget. So that's really hard because most technology companies take a lot of venture capital, and it becomes a lot easier when you have a lot of money, right? We did it while being poor. Now, the good outcome of that is, and I really credit Rob, our prior CEO and co-founder, that means that today I'm in a very fortunate position where I don't have to answer to a venture capital board and I can think long
Yeah.
term, right? I don't have to worry about quarter to quarter results. We're able to build the software over the long run. So I think the most difficult part for me today, or as I think about the challenge of kind of since I've been here, is okay. How do we take it? We were already incredibly successful in North American markets. Over the past 2 years, we've started to expand really globally, right? Both into developed ex-US markets as well as more emerging markets, such as Africa, India, Latin America, Southeast Asia. And I think the challenge is obviously the world is a very different and diverse place. And so doing business in other countries requires you to address different needs. So that's forced us to get both better, both from a sales and marketing perspective, but also from a product perspective. Because the problems that a Nigerian organization that is struggling with innovation are very different than a Vietnamese organization, than a Brazilian organization, than an American organization. And so we need to make our software more dynamic and more comprehensive so that it addresses the globe's innovation needs, not just American companies' innovation needs.
Yeah. So now, if listeners to take away just one thing concerning innovation from our conversation so far today, what should that one thing be?
Innovation is a process, not a moment of brilliance.
Hmm. Innovation is a process. Okay.
Not a moment of brilliance.
Oh, brilliant. Amazing. Amazing. So, for our listeners who want to continue this conversation, who have listened to us so far, and probably they want to connect with you, or they want to maybe use Idea Scale, or they want to, like I said, continue this conversation, learn more about Idea Scale, learn more about innovation, learn more about gathering ideas and everything. What's the best way they can reach you?
Sure. So two ways for IdeaScale. Our website is ideascale.com. You can see how to spell it behind me there. Our software is completely free for teams and organizations less than 100 people. So just click Get Started Free. Takes less than a minute to set up. No downloads required. Entirely online, and your data remains 100% yours. So I encourage everyone to go sign up for IdeaScale. That is a free, unlimited trial forever, as long as you're below 100 people. And then number two, if you want to get in touch with me personally, my name is Nick Jain. Easiest way to contact me is on LinkedIn. I respond to 100% of messages. DM me.
If you're below 100 people, it's totally free for you. So sign up, get started, try it out. And the link will be on the screen and in the show notes once this goes live. Or if you want to continue this conversation, we've done this for about 30 minutes. If you want to talk for the next the rest of the day with Nick Jain, go onto his LinkedIn, DM him. He said he's going to respond to you. So thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the
Thank
show.
you
Thank you
so
so much
much
for
for having me on
sharing.
your show, Peter. It's been wonderful, and you've been a great host.
Thank you. And for the listeners, I hope you got something from this episode, got something about innovation, got something about recognizing good ideas, gathering good ideas, got one of the things we mentioned in this episode, and like Nick's takeaway too. Not
It is
a
a process. It is a
It is a
process.
process. Yes. It's not a moment of brilliance. It is a process.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got that now. Okay, so if you got anything, don't forget to share it with someone else who is struggling with innovation, who needs something like this in their business. And if you want to be the first person to know when we come out with brand new episodes like this for your business, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, whatever you're hearing us, wherever you're seeing Nick and I. This is we are over 100 episodes. We bring out one episode a week, so you have a lot of episodes to listen to till we come out next week. So till then, keep taking your business and bye for now.